welcome to the podcast called The Winning Pitch. I have a friend of mine who is quite famous and well known, and he's going to tell you his path to success. So, Aaron, please introduce yourself to the audience. Don't presume that the audience knows who you are or what you do or anything about it.
I love it. No problem. Thank you, Tom. Pleasure to be here with you today. The Winning Pitch. I can't say that I've played baseball recently, probably since I was about 8 or 9 years old. So, but I love watching it, and I love the principles of success and seeing people win on the field and off the field. So, yeah, man. Introduction to myself: I'm a salesperson through and through. I started a company recently, right before this COVID situation. And we are the folks that connect IT and technical company salespeople, the high-end closers, the folks that do millions and millions in margin or GP a year, to their buyers. So it's pretty simple. We go out, we make the calls, we identify the decision makers, and we deliver those appointments and those early stage conversations to those reps to close. So that's our specialty, the prospecting side of the house. So
what gave you the idea to get in that business?
What gave me the idea to get in that business? Well, a lot of trial and error to realize that that's been my strength for the last 10 years. You probably don't know too much of my story, but if I back up a while ago, I've been in sales for about 15 years. I started in the Northeast of the country in late October, leaving a very secure hourly job in landscaping to go into sales, knocking door to door. Give the listeners a time frame so they can track with you along your time track.
Yeah,
sure. So, 15 years ago, you're talking about how old I am, or what do you want to
say? In September of 1892, because I know how old you really are.
Well, I'm not quite 40. All right. I'm headed that direction. So this would have been in my late 20s. So I decided, hey, I'm going to go ahead and try my hand at the sales gig. I heard that a lot of people made money in that route and that career path. And so I went into security system sales. You guys have all seen the ADT signs up on people's yards, right? That was me. I was the fella knocking on the door. Not sure why I started in the dead of winter, but it definitely helped me grow some tough skin and get used to rejection. So that was the beginning of my story. I went through a couple of different careers in sales through different industries: trucking, freight load, truckload types of freight and logistics sales. And I ended up in technology sales, selling the computers that sit on your desk, right? And all the peripherals associated with it. Eventually worked up to selling enterprise grade systems to big companies all over the world, and servers and systems that support the back end as well. And that's what I've done for the last 10 years before I started my gig in outsourced sales development. So that's how I landed here today.
Cool. So the audience gets to know you better. Where were you born?
I was born in Thousand Oaks, California, right outside of Malibu. Yeah.
What are you doing on the East Coast, walking around knocking on doors in the snow? Come on now.
Broken families, Tom. I grew up, my mom and dad split when I was 3, and that changed a lot for me. And then every marriage and subsequent divorce and maybe an annulment in there between the two of them, over many marriages and relationships, sent me around the country. So I've lived in the South, in South Carolina. I've lived in Indiana. Maryland is probably the place that I've been the longest. So,
of all the places that you live, what's your favorite?
It's a good question, man. The Northeast has some beautiful seasons. I love being able to experience the weather and the way that nature turns, and you see the trees. Right now, especially, it's gorgeous outside, and I enjoy that. It's like each place has its own unique, appeal. And
so I'm not going to let you get away without answering the question.
I'll tell you where I've enjoyed the most, because this is where I'd like to get my family and my bride and my kids to move to.
Okay.
And that would be down along the coast, down near Charleston, South Carolina. So
Okay.
I didn't live right there. We visited many, many times in my youth. We lived up the coast a bit and inland, but really enjoy that area.
Have you ever been to Savannah?
I have. Savannah is fantastic.
I
I think
love
you have
that
a
town.
family over there, right?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
That's good stuff.
So you started you were in landscaping, and then you went into selling alarm systems, I think is the way that I understood that.
You heard it.
So what is your successful story to inspire all these? There's 8 billion people on the planet, and they're all listening to you right now, so there's no pressure.
The winning pitch, man. We're going to number one. Let me back up a little bit further than that. Okay, I'm going to take you back to college. Okay, I was the pretty good student. You know, Division I athlete. Went to Maryland, and I was a runner. I was one of the cross country guys that ran around the track after school. You know, and I'm about a year and a half in to who knows what degree. And I remember walking into my economics class the last day of the semester, right? So this is a class where I thought I was going to learn about money, Tom. I thought they were going to teach me how to be rich, right? And mind you, I come from a family that, you know, none of them really had any money to speak of, right? Mostly all employees, and nobody that hit the rich, you know, or had the coin, so to speak. And so here I am in economics class, final day of the semester. We're taking the exam, and I go up to the teacher and I said, "Look, Mr. So-and-so," I was like, "I'm a little disappointed. You know, I came here to learn how to get rich, and here we are talking about all these terms and things that don't really seem to correlate to my pocketbook and my bank account." Mm-hmm. Right. And I really am thankful.
You flunk.
I am so thankful for this professor, Tom. I'm so thankful for this professor. He was making about $65,000 at the time, a year, annual salary. And he looked at me and he said, "Aaron, if you want to get rich, I can't teach you how to get rich." He goes, "You're going to have to go out and find somebody that's got a lot of money and ask them how to do the same. And that's probably how you'll get it done." So I remember I turned around, walked out of the classroom, left the campus, and never came back. And I am so grateful for that experience and his honesty as a professor to tell me that truth. So wow. That kind of lays the foundation for you of my journey, right? I've literally over the last few decades tried to decide who is in life where I want to be in whatever subject area or content, and how can I align myself with, you know, what is it that they did? How did they get there, right? And is that something that I can go apply to my own life and maybe get the same results?
So here you are now in your late 30s, and who have you decided on?
Yeah, great question, man. So initially, right after that situation in college, I started trying a lot of get rich quick schemes. They were kind of more of the pyramid schemes. Some of them were legitimate in terms of the multi-level marketing. And I'm really glad that I chose to fill my head with a lot of content about, you know, how to get better, how to improve yourself as a person, and that sort of thing, how to win friends and influence people type of material. And it really, really was helpful to get me kind of out of my introverted shell to learn to connect to other people. But to your point, remind me real quick of the question.
Now, I'm the old guy in this group, and you forgot already. That's why I love you so much. You're right at home with me.
Dude, it's good.
What I asked you was, you said the professor told you to go find somebody.
Yeah. Who did I find?
So who'd you find?
Yeah, a great point. So I was going to take you on a quick journey, succession. So the first person that I found was when I was completely burdened by debt, weighted down like crazy. had just gotten married, and my wife looks at me and she's like, you got to do something about this financial burden, right? This was hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Things that I had even hidden debt from her previous to our marriage. I had some credit cards that I didn't really tell her about, which my friend calls financial infidelity. Did not recommended. And the first person that I found was Dave Ramsey. So I'm very, very grateful that we were able to find the baby steps, realize a little bit more about what personal finance was. It took us about 7-8 years, but we worked hard, we made a plan, and we were able to knock out everything, including the house. We took care of all of our payments, all of our debt burden and obligation to other people, and really gave us a breath of fresh air. So that was the first person. Then I'm searching around, Tom, and I'm thinking, well, who else can teach me how to get really rich and has content and material around that I can just absorb, right? And that's how I found Grant Cardone and the 10X movement. So that's been a great gift. I went to one of his boot camps. That was my first experience.
So how you signed up for one of his boot camps, and that was the very first connection that you had with Grant?
You got it.
Boy, that's a big step, because that's not inexpensive.
No, for me, it was the biggest investment in my personal growth and finance that I'd ever made, right? I think it was his first boot camp. I'd seen this guy on a couple of videos via YouTube, showed him to my wife, and she's like, he seems authentic. His message seems like it lines up with our principles and values. Go figure out if it's real and tell me if those guys are legit, right? So we flew down to Miami at the time, and this beautiful, glorious resort where he was hosting, and I got to meet some of the most incredible people in the world.
Was that at the Diplomat?
I believe it was. No, the Diplomat. This was Turnberry.
You started at Turnberry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I remember, Tom, meeting people, little old me. I'd done pretty well in technology sales, worked my way past 6 figures, and I thought that I was pretty hot stuff, right? And then I'm sitting in the room with people that build airplanes and paint the jets for folks like Bill Gates, and it just blew me away, man. I realized how little I know, how much more I need to grow, and that was a really enriching experience for me.
Awesome. So you go to the boot camp and you come home. What was the first week home from the boot camp like for you?
What was the first week home from the boot camp? So this was 2.5, 3 years ago at this point. And I remember being so fired up. And mind you, I've been to lots of events, right? I've been to a lot of pep rally types of fire you up and get you excited type of things. But this was way more than that, man. These were real people that had paid, thousands and thousands of dollars to be a part of this thing. And so my belief level had gone so much higher up that I could do what these folks had done, because I had the opportunity to shake their hand. Right. And so I literally went out there and I said, how fast can I find buyers for what I'm selling? Right. And so I turned up the action, to 10X levels of action. And we ended up not only breaking the company record in sales over the next couple of months, we doubled what the previous record was.
So this was while you were still working for someone else.
True. That's why I was still working in technology sales.
Did they pay for your trip down there?
Nope. It was out of my own pocket. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So good on them for recognizing that someone outside of their corporate training program could bring something to them.
I don't know if they ever recognized that. I was willing to make the investment on my own, and I continued to make the investment, and I poured a significant amount of money into my personal education, and I'm grateful. It's gotten me the opportunities that I have today.
Awesome. So you go to this boot camp, you come home all fired up. What were you doing at the time as a statistic that we could use as a baseline? And how did your stats look, say, the following month or the following 6 months?
In terms of like income, revenue or income? So in sales,
I'm a money guy.
Yeah. So in sales, in terms of revenue, we were doing the number to beat was 3.5 million, right?
For a year? or a month?
Yeah, for a year. So that was 3.5 million a year. You could get your margin numbers out of that and your commissions out of that and so forth. And that was pretty good in the industry where we were. Nobody in the company had ever done more than 3.5. So I ended up doing 3.6 right before I went to that event. And over the next year and a half, 2 years, we did 8 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it really worked for you.
Yeah. And not only that, but I took some of the principles of the 10X movement, right? And some of the principles of what it means to be successful and to apply yourself with a great attitude and to 10X your actions and activity. And I started to teach that to other folks in our team, and our team did double that. So it was pretty impressive what we were able to do together.
So take me granularly, exactly with details, what you did in terms of you said you took some of the teachings. Give me an example of one of the teachings, what you did and what it produced for you.
Yeah. So I think realizing that the most important activity a salesperson can do is prospecting, right? Mm-hmm. Having as many conversations as possible with your potential buyers every day is very, very important. And in the enterprise world, especially in technology, a lot of people, when you start closing and you get a few relationships under your belt where you might be getting paid a couple $100,000 a year, you get pretty comfortable. And not many people continue to do what got them to where they were, right? And so that prospecting, constantly making phone calls. Yeah.
We should probably identify for the audience that the word comfortable to a follower of Grant Cardone means C-.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, right on. So I didn't want to be comfortable. My not my family, but just people I'd been exposed to, not to mention at that boot camp, had showed me that, unreasonable levels of success, things that weren't normal were still possible, right? And that there was no reason for me to lower the standard or just be comfortable and do what the majority of people do, because I enjoyed so much being with people that were exceptional. Okay. Right. And I really wanted to be around those types of people. So we committed to certain volumes of prospecting, right? And I'm not talking about outrageous volume, but, an individual rep, we would train to do between, 60 and 80 phone calls a day, right? And these are people making some pretty good money. They have accounts to manage. They have a lot of other things to do as well as just make phone calls, but you're going for a target of, 4, 5, 6 or more conversations a day with qualified buyers, right? And this is for individual business development reps, or some people might call them SDRs, but generally it's a biz dev rep or an account executive. So we trained the team to be consistent in that. We taught around how to get a hold of people, and lo and behold, that seems to be the biggest problem in today's marketplace is how do you get somebody on the phone? How do you find their phone number? How do you get in conversation with that person quickly and, not have to beat around the bush just trying to get them on the line.
Okay. What else besides prospecting did you discover?
Oh man, I've dived so deep into what it takes to connect with a buyer and deliver what they really need. Here's another fun thing that I think will help anybody that's in B2B sales, if you're dealing with companies and big organizations. But it also helps people B2C, believe it or not. And this was really, really helpful to me. And I would train the teams on this too. I think it comes from a book in a group called Action Selling. But they taught that people that when they purchase make conscious or subconscious decisions in a particular order. And if you don't follow that order, you're probably going to lose the deal or wonder what's missing in the relationship, why you didn't get further along and get a close, right? And so these 5 things are really, really cool. They go in order, kind of like the acts of a play. If you've ever been to the theater, right? It wouldn't make a lot of sense if you saw the first act and the last act, right? You got to see them in succession. If there's 5 of them, you want to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And so the first thing that people always buy is they buy you as the salesperson, right? They want to know, do I like this person? Is this somebody that I would see myself doing business with? Are they helping me identify my problem, right? Are they clear? Are they organized? All these kind of questions go through somebody's mind when they pick up the phone.
Okay.
The second thing that they buy is the company. So they want to know, can this company scale with me? Can they handle my business? Have they done this before, right? Or am I willing to take the risk with them now? They're asking questions about the company, right? And this is, even procurement officials will do this in large companies.
Okay.
The next thing that they'll ask is the product, right? Are we on the right product? You know, have we narrowed it down to, this is what's going to solve my problem? And the next thing would be price. See, a lot of people think that price comes at the beginning of a deal, and it's okay to bring it up. I love how Grant talks about that, you know, setting the expectation that we're going to be talking about these numbers ahead of time. But when a buyer is thinking about a purchase, they're thinking of it more in this order, right? Okay, I've got the person, I've got the company, I now have the product. Is the price going to be worth it? And then finally, is the timing right for me to buy? So those 5 things have really helped me work through the stages of where each one of my buyers is in a sale. And if we are talking about B2B or really complex selling, you could have, you know, 5, 10 buyers in a deal, and each one of them has to go through that cycle, and you got to make sure you know where they all are in that process.
So did you mean that the way that you said that there's 7 different decision makers, or there's 7 different separate cycles and each one is a unique decision maker to what he needs?
Yeah, great question. I meant more that there are multiple types of decision makers, right? So there's usually, I think Grant teaches 4 types, right? There's an economic buyer, there's a user buyer, there's somebody in management that buys, and there's somebody technically that signs off on the deal and evaluates the deal that way, right? Okay. Now, when you're dealing with a small organization or an individual, they could all be wrapped up into 1 or 2 people, right? Okay. But when you're dealing with a huge company that might have 10, 20,000 employees, that sort of thing, in a large organizational structure and management group, right? A corporate group, perhaps. Usually you'll have to go out and find at least those 4 types of buyers. And then you got to know where buyer A is. So let's say they're an economic buyer who makes purchasing decisions, sends you the PO, the purchase offer, right? That person, you have to decide, well, have they bought me? Have they bought our company? Have they bought the product? Is this the right product, right? And you can go through those conscious or subconscious purchasing decisions with each one of the different types of buyers.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah.
So what did you discover about follow-up during this journey?
This is a great question. I think most of us fail as salespeople because of our lack of follow-up. I really do. And I think that the best salespeople don't always get it right at the beginning, but they're willing to follow up, and that's why they end up with the deals. Right? That persistence is one of the best things. I think about it, you know, with my friend who got married recently, right? Like, he had to keep asking her. Well, if he had stopped at the first time when she wasn't sure or didn't say yes, that would have been a problem for him, right? But you keep following up, you keep asking. And so what I've learned, to be real specific, is that most people make their purchasing decisions somewhere between the 8th and the 12th time that you follow up with them. And so why not condense that and touch base with those people and follow up with those people a lot faster than you normally would, so that you can get to that 8th to 12th number as fast as possible.
So is that something that you learned at the boot camp or from Grant Cardone, or were you already doing it?
Yeah, I would say that I was already pretty consistent in my follow-up. I don't always hit it a home run out of the park right away when I'm talking to somebody, but I'll keep showing up and talking to them, right? I'll keep asking them what their problem is and trying to solve that problem, or bring in an engineer, or bring in somebody that's smarter than me to knock out, you know, that piece of their questioning. Cardone solidified it for me. Right. And then he gives you different campaigns, right? Like there's the 8x22 campaign that I think may have come from that boot camp. But this is what you could do the first time that you follow up with them. This is what you could do with the second time. This is what you could do with the third time. And here's how you stay creative. And here's how you stay respectful, right? And this is not about pounding somebody over the head to buy your product. This is about creating a long-term relationship with somebody that's a repeat buyer, where you both enjoy doing business with each other long into the future.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that I used to follow up with everyone who reached to me. I followed up with them until they died. I used to call it my BFD marketing program. I followed up until they either bought, flew, which means they told me to get lost. And I told them that, okay, I'll stop calling you, but I'm not really going to do it. I'll just shut you out 6 months, 12 months, or they die. And it kind of instinctively did that. But with Grant, when I looked at his little push button system for the first 365 days, I goes, oh, damn. So then I was able to create a system that I gave to people who worked for me and said, this is what you do on day one, this is what you do on day, and I'm calling it day, but it's actually contact one, contact two, contact three. And because I'm in the aviation tax business, which means those can be very, very, very long, 5 to 8 year cycles. And there are some people that I've been following up with for 15, 20 years and still haven't bought from me. Yet they will eventually become one of my customers because I'm not going away. I know they need me. When someone reaches to me, it was because they had a problem that they felt I was the solution for. So I'm just going to keep feeding them solutions and solutions and solutions and information and sending
100%.
them handwritten notes, leaving them messages and stuff like that. Because the worst thing that can ever happen to me as a salesman is somebody, I finally get in communication with them after, say, 2.5 years, and they say, oh, I bought an airplane 2 months ago and I hired such and such. I forgot about you. That's my fault. That's totally my fault. I don't want you to ever forget about me. And, but I always did that kind of like, I think I was going to use the word innately or instinctively, but Grant systematized everything. And because he put it so hard, it just became real to me. And everyone around here knows that, everyone around my company knows about those systems and follows them. And I'm trying to figure out how to use that with, even though our tax system requires constant follow-up, where we also actually do the follow-up with them after they've gotten their tax exemptions, and it's just to stay in touch with them, because people who buy airplanes tend to buy another one sooner or later. I've got guys that have been with me 6, 7, 8 transactions. So, I've been in the business long enough that I've got to have a real good feel for it all, how it all works.
Sure. So, and how do you continue to, provide the services and stay in top of mind? Persistence and follow-up is where it's at.
You call them a lot. In fact, what I use to decide if I'm calling the right amount is when people start telling me to stop calling them. Until I get to that point, I up the call goals. Until I get people who are telling me to stop calling me, then I know that's the right number. That's where you've got to go every day.
And do something memorable, right? If you do something memorable in that, however long your sales cycle is, right? Whether it's, 6 months or even a few months or 10, 15 years, if you do something memorable that helps you stand out, you're creating that impression, right, in their mind. Hey, this is the guy I got to go find when I have this problem, right?
So now I'm going to ask you the tough question.
Sure, bring it.
So going over your entire work history, including the gardening, the yard stuff that you were doing, tell me about your single best moment. Identify what year it was, what month it was, who you were working for, what you were doing, and put the listener there with you. So be very descriptive.
Okay. All right. So let's go back about 20 years.
Okay.
All right. I had walked out of the college classroom and off the campus because I wasn't going to learn how to make money there. And I had to do something to pay the bills, right? Something to pay the bills. So I had just left working a tree cutting service. So if you've ever been a part of one of or seen the guys that are off the side of the road, chainsawing the trunks and tossing the branches in the back of the chipper truck where, it sprays dust and dirt out all day. I just left that for what I thought was going to be the best position in the world, because I was going from hourly to salaried position.
Okay.
Right. Yes. And so here I am going into salary position, never heard of or commissions in the past. So to me, to get off of hourly and get into salary was a big raise, big up. Right. And I remember about 4 or 5 months into this landscaping gig, we were doing, the company would do a couple of different things. We would do what they would call stream restorations, right? Where you take plants and you go down to streams that are being restored, or where they build up the rocks and the concrete to protect it from erosion, right? And we would plant these things all along the banks of whatever this river or stream would be, right? And often this would be in new housing developments and that sort of thing to meet the environmental codes, right? And I would be the guy that would go around with the auger, and I would, make the holes for each of the plants as we went around. Well, in order to do a bunch of trees or a bunch of plants and vegetation in one day, I would have to carry a bunch of equipment with me. And I took around all of that gear, the handheld auger and whatnot, inside of these little utility vehicles. People have seen like the 4-wheelers that you might have fun with, right? When you're going off road. Well, this was, probably a $10,000-$15,000 piece of equipment. And I'm getting to one of the best things that ever happened to me here, right? And I completely destroyed it. I destroyed this piece of equipment. All right. Here's how it went down. I left the safe bank off the river and came down into a bed of this new construction area. And picture, thousands and thousands, it seemed like thousands of homes at the time. Maybe it was just hundreds in multiple stages of construction around me. No real trees anywhere. That's why we're there to help replant, right? And I'm down in one of those drainage pits that's right near where a new road was being developed, right? And in the big drain systems that went under the road. And I came up, I left all my equipment, everything down there, and I came up for lunch only to hear a thunderstorm crack in the distance. And the largest downpour I'd ever seen just deluged the whole place. And I'm hiding in the trailer and I'm thinking, oh, this isn't good. How am I going to get down and get my equipment? Well, before I knew it, the area where I'd left all the gear in that beautiful utility vehicle started to rise with water and fill up, right? And it filled up probably 10, 15 feet deep in a matter of minutes. And all of the equipment that I left out there was completely destroyed, right? And I'm thinking, this is no good. It's not turning on. Nothing's working. And I had to go and I had to tell the owner of the company that I just messed up something that was a pretty penny, right? Well, here's what happened. He was not happy. He was disappointed. But this thing changed my life, Tom. He said, "It's all right. I'm going to take care of it. I'm scared. Personally, I'm scared I'm going to lose my job, right? Like this is going to go away. Everything good that's happened so far is going to evaporate." And he says, "I'll take care of it. Here's what I want you to do so this doesn't happen again," right? And he gave me mercy, man. He gave me a second chance. And I think that's really cool in and of itself, because it taught me a lot about leadership, because my loyalty to him and that firm just increased dramatically. But more importantly, it taught me the principle of building margin for your errors into your business. I was amazed that he could afford to have this thing repaired and fixed without it destroying his business and his small business in this company. And so he taught me that you ought to always make room for mistakes, right? Because that's a part of getting to the end game. And that's probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me in business and personal finance.
Great story. So now take your consciousness and put it over all the same jobs
Yeah.
and tell me about your single worst moment. And again, be very descriptive about it.
Yeah. Single worst moment. All right. Trying to be a little, I'll take you into maybe where I was mentally. That was not a good place
Okay.
for multiple months. So I mentioned that I was in technology sales and that I had learned to put my head down and do the activity and just make the work happen so I could close some deals. Well, the first time I broke the company record in sales, which was, 3.6 million, I believe, I was excited, and I was paid that year more than I had thought I'd ever be paid before. I mean, I always wanted to make more money, but this was where like I actually had the paychecks and we paid off all of our debt. And so here I am having reached what I thought was beyond the goal that I had set for myself in personal income, right? And Tom, this is the worst because for the next probably 5 months, maybe it was a little less than that, I felt like I was depressed. I'd reached this goal that had been out there for a long time, and I didn't have another goal to go after.
Oh,
And
you were
looking,
under the impression somebody was supposed to give you the new goal, huh?
yeah, I mean, looking back at it now, right? I've got to own all that, right? I've got to set my goals but man, that was a horrible time. That was really, really bad. And, I know now it's because I didn't have another goal and my goals weren't big enough. Right.
Yeah.
But back at that time when I'd reached everything, that more money than anybody in my family had ever made and, all this kind of cool stuff, man, I was down and out and I was questioning life and questioning my purpose and questioning, what was valuable. And, it's funny, the more that income I think that I make, I realize how it's more just a tool and a resource to help other people more than it is just something for me to get what I want. But those two mix as well. So that was the worst thing that's happened to me.
I understand. Now, I'll tell you a story from my life that's similar, but it's not a goals problem. My grandfather was one of the R&D guys for Spreckles Sugar, and they mandatory retired him at the age of 65. And by the age of 67, he was almost dead. His body started to develop all kinds of problems. So he on his own figured out to go back to Spreckles and say, I'm going to come to work as a consultant. And he worked for them as an external consultant, a 1099 employee, until I think he was like 90 when he died. So wow. He bought himself an extra 20, 25 years alive. Wow. And the ride that comes up on my mind is that when I reached the age of 70, actually before that, in the late 60s, I started referring to myself as an old man. Well, you've met my wife, Julie, and she says, no. You're only as old as you think you are. I says, well, okay, but look at my driver's license. I got proof. Says, okay, then we're gonna change the way you think about it. I says, what? She says, you're gonna live till you're 150 years old. And when I think about that, I says, damn, I'm not even halfway. I got a lot of things left to do. I got a lot of time left to do. So it's, and I realized by taking what Julie said to me and matching it back to my experience with my grandfather, it's in here. It's all in here. Yeah. So, like when I was coaching baseball, which I did for 4 decades, which some people know that, some people don't. The umpires would always ask me, when are you going to retire? Never. I like it. I enjoy it. I like being out in the sun. I like yelling at kids. I like yelling at umpires. It's what I enjoy doing. I love the game of baseball. And I don't want to retire. Now, eventually I did retire from baseball. I didn't really retire. I quit. The game has changed so much for me that I couldn't tolerate it being around spoiled little brats who think that every time their son doesn't get it exactly the way that they think it ought to be, that I should go visit the principal and get my butt chewed for doing my job. So I quit. I said, no, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm worth way too much for this. And then took that 50 or 60 hours a week that I was devoting to coaching baseball and put it back into my business. And my business statistics went straight up just like that. So I already knew about the energy that it takes to work 120 hours a week
Right.
because it's what I was doing, but I was doing two things that I love. So I just started doing one thing that I love and stopped doing something that I didn't like anymore. It's like,
Yeah.
nah, I ain't gonna do
And
that.
how much more alive do you feel, with that longer term perspective,
Boy, it's a good question. I don't know that I feel more alive, but I feel like I have more time. I'm
Mm,
not being cavalier about that because I also know that I could walk outside and get hit by a bus. So it's not like I don't take that into consideration. It's just that from a responsibility standpoint, it goes, oh, I've still got to take care of things for another 78 years. So, I got to step up the game big time. So, it's I appreciate her perspective. Okay. Um, when you get old and your body starts to break down, it's hard not to notice it, but all you got to do is decide to not let it happen. And
yeah.
I don't know how to answer that. Ask me at 100. I've already promised some people that on my 100th birthday, I'm going to reveal to people why I like baseball so much because it'll blow your socks off. If you when you hear that story, you're going to go, this guy's crazy. Well, of course I'm crazy. I'm planet Earth. Everybody's on planet Earth is crazy. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. Nobody told you that we're in an insane asylum. Oh, damn. That's a little bit of a leak.
Yeah, man.
So anyway, I have enjoyed we typically, just so the audience knows this, Aaron and I typically get together every Monday at around 2:00, except for when the older of the two of us forgets. And then I have to get this very friendly little, aren't you going to be on the call today? But we're each other's accountability partners. We met at an event was it April?
Yes.
It
Or
was
no,
after,
February.
so it was before COVID started,
Yeah.
right? Okay,
Mhm.
right before. And we talk to each other on Monday and we go, what are you gonna accomplish this week? And then he asked me what I'm gonna accomplish this week and what's your goals. And then we have to I have to tell him about what I didn't accomplish, and I lie to him sometimes and tell him I really made really big. And
Celebrate wins too. We celebrate
yeah,
wins, man.
well,
People forget to do that sometimes,
that's probably my biggest weakness is it's what I do becomes so commonplace to me because I do it every day. It doesn't feel special. And if I
Yeah.
don't talk to someone else who kind of gives me some reinforcement for that, I forget about it. And it's not a forgetting like just because I've gotten old. It's just that it's like taking a guy who's really good at hitting a baseball. It's hard sometimes for him to teach it because it's what he does. He doesn't
Right.
remember all the work that it
It's
takes.
unconscious sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's habitual. You've done it so many times.
Yep. Yep.
I'm with you,
So
man.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
What did you learn? What lesson did you learn for being an athlete? Because I think you said you were a D1 track guy.
Yeah. I actually made it to nationals in high school, and ended up me and a relay team on the 4x mile coming in sixth in the nation that year.
So were you the guy that went first or the guy that went last?
I was a closer.
Uh,
They put me in to close, man. It was
so
the first.
you were the fastest guy, right?
I'd like to think of it like that. All I know
Well,
is
that was a softball that I fed you so you could hit it out of the park and you blew it and everybody knows you weren't the fastest guy. So anyway, tell me the story.
Well, I'd love to think of it that way. When there's somebody up ahead of you, right? And I think this goes for success in just about any area of our lives. If they can do it, why can't you do it? In that year, the year that I came on the scene for the mile, we had two guys for the first time in 30 some years break the 4-minute mile in high school.
Wow.
Right. And so that was my competition. Right. And I never beat them. I got close, but I never beat them. But I was way, way better for having competed against those guys.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's your mic drop.
That's it, man. If you, what was it? You know, you'll be in the same place 5 years from now, except for the people that you hang out with or associate with and the books that you read. That statement changed my life.
Where did that statement come from?
I don't know, but somebody smarter than me.
Everybody's smarter than
It might have been Charlie Tremendous Jones, I believe, is who said that first. Something very close to that.
I'm sorry, I don't know who he is.
Oh, it's all good. He lived in out of Pennsylvania, and if you have a success book in your hand, it probably went through his publishing company at one time.
Ah, okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
So, thank you for giving your time for my podcast. Thank you for delivering a reason to succeed. Thank you for giving acknowledgement to Grant Cardone, which I do in everything that I do and say and live. Is there anything else that you'd like to say? Let's say that you were speaking to a guy getting ready to graduate from high school. What one thing would you tell him?
Somebody just getting ready to graduate from high school. I would tell them to find people that have sustained results in whatever area of life that they want to improve and go spend time with those people, whatever it takes.
Okay. The reason I said high school instead of college is I went to college for three semesters. Sounds like about the same as you. I have no use for it. I had absolutely no use for it. I just, you know, what I learned well, I won't tell you what I learned in college because then
you remember?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I'm not much of an alcoholic or a drug addict, but I can party with the best of them. But anyway, I can't tell you.
It's a good social experiment, right? I learned a lot about myself in college. You can get a lot of good contacts going to college as well, or at least you could. I don't know if it's the same today in terms of you get to meet a lot of new people, right?
Well,
people
I think in college now you're not allowed to talk. I think you have to text.
Oh, that's right.
Nobody's
in person anymore.
I think it's, it's like when I used to drive my daughter to high school basketball games, and she was a player, so she was on the women's team, and there was 3 girls in the back, and they're all on their phones. And I said, "What are you guys doing?" I said, "We're talking to each other." I go, "What?
Wow.
You're sitting right next to a person, and you're texting with each other?" I know why you want to do that, because I'm not supposed to know what you're talking about. Listen, I was a teenager. You're talking about the same things today that I was talking about, because I didn't want my mom or my dad to know what I was talking about either.
Right.
So, but I really think you're losing a very valuable skill in being able to talk to people face to face and look them straight in the face. But anyway,
but
that's my message to high school kids.
Yeah, I'm with you. Because skills today, we live in a hyper skill driven business world, right? You have to be the best to get noticed, in my opinion.
Okay.
Right. And everybody that does business with you, the first thing they want to know is, what are you absolutely excellent at? Right? What are you great at? One guy said it this way. He said, "What's your superpower?" And
are you one of the X-Men?
Yeah, exactly. Do you have some cool, thing that happens to your body, right? But what is it that you do? Because, it takes time to develop skills sometimes, right?
Yeah.
At least it takes repetition, and repetition usually takes time, and I would encourage other people to start working today in something, commit to it and stick to it. That's one of the hardest things for people to do, in this distractive world and economy. You're talking about the kids on their phones, right? Like, how do you commit to something and stick to it so that you can get better at it, eventually master it, and then you'll be extremely valuable in the marketplace?
The way I explain that is, get out of the 2-dimensional world and get into the 3-dimensional world. That's the way
I like that.
Because it's like you and I are talking on technology today. It's all 2 dimensions. While we still, this is a lot better than just talking on the phone, because I can see you, I can see your body language, I can tell how you're really reacting to things that you say and things like that. So it's an improvement over talking on the telephone. But
Yeah.
the ideal kind of communication is in the three-dimensional world, because it's just a bigger screen. There's more perceptics that you have innately as a spiritual being, and it's just easier to, anyway, from my standpoint.
Dude, I'm with you. The people are operating today, oftentimes on lies, right? And, you know, those kids, to your baseball experience, that get participation medals, right? Or they, you know, they take away the winner's medal and everybody gets the same thing just for showing up. Like, it's not true. You know, they've got to get to the point where they understand that the winner in life is the one that excels, the one that comes across the line first, the one that gets it done, right? That executes. And those people have become more and more rare, right? And so you become more valuable in the marketplace if you're willing to go and do what other people aren't. You know, that hasn't changed, you know, for years.
Yep.
So, Tom, I could tell you maybe one last thing here. I just celebrated 12 years of marriage, and I am super excited about that. She is the love of my life. We've grown closer and closer every year, and I have 4 kids and 1 on the way, hopefully in the next month here.
Pretty soon you'll discover what causes that.
Everyone that comes in, I make more money, man. Everyone, my life gets more full and more joy. You know, there's more joy, more work, but certainly more joy, right? And I hope that people realize and turn to others that know what's true, and don't spend half their life wasting because they believe the lie. You know, to your point earlier, you know, most people die. I think it was Benjamin Franklin said, most people die at 25 and they're buried at 75.
Yeah.
You know, why not have that longer term perspective? Go out and serve some people. You know, businesses, you get paid to trade and do good for other people, right?
Absolutely.
It's phenomenal. You know, there's no better certificate of appreciation than the bills that show up in my hand from having done something for somebody that they valued more than the money they gave me.
Awesome.
So,
well, anyway,
good.
Aaron, I want to thank you for your time. If you want, you can give your contact information if anybody wants to contact you directly. You can give me your social media stuff, or you can give me your phone number.
Yeah,
if you don't
sure.
want to do that because you want to keep your head in the shell, you turtle, you just go ahead and not give it to me.
Way to set me up there, man. Way to set me up.
You are.
Yeah. So people can reach out if they want outsourced sales development. They want to have a conversation about sales or just life in general. I'm happy to share, you know, whatever's worked for me. If it'll work for you, I'm happy to do that. So 443-305-9466 and leave a voicemail. That's a good number to reach me. 443-305-9466. We are launching a company called Win Sales. Win Sales. You won't find a lot of it online yet because we're doing a lot behind the scenes for our buyers. And yeah, I'm excited, man. When somebody calls me, I'm going to tell you that I'm loving life, because that's not only what I want it to be, but because we get to wake up each day and make it that. So it's good.
Absolutely. So anyway, thank you for your time. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you for your motivation. And thank you for being my accountability partner.
Tom, I appreciate you, man. I respect you so much for not just throwing in the towel, but being willing to continue to invest in yourself and those around you, and to build a business that's based on service and improving every day. So thank you, man. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you on the podcast and to know you in life.
Okay. I love you, brother.